from the chat. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Motor City Metrics podcast. This is the Monday edition, special Hot Monday edition. It's me, Chris Brown. Alongside me, we've got John and Uper. Rogelio should be joining us shortly. We're just here to kind of recap a pretty fun weekend of Tigers baseball, stretching in here into Monday, a long weekend. For many of us, it was a holiday actually, which was nice. It's been a strange June, I would say, for the Tigers. You know, it seemed like they were just in the worst circumstances possible, facing first place team after first place team, and getting swept by the White Sox and then the Diamondbacks, and blowing a game here and there. But would you know it, a 3-game, taking 3 or 4 from the Twins and winning nice comeback fashion tonight against the Royals, and suddenly it feels like the Tigers are just right back in it, I guess, in this terrible division. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let's get your assessment of the situation there.
Well, I mean, obviously, they lose 9 in a row, and they lost a few of them in rather ugly fashion in the late night in the games, and you're wondering, where are they going from here? But lo and behold, you're having, I think, young guys who are hungry, help them sustain themselves and kind of get off the mat. Having some rather mediocre opponents helps too. But they were able to go on the road to Minnesota and win that series. And they did some good things in that series, pitching wise. Minnesota may not have the greatest lineup, but they made them look pretty quiet. And then tonight, hey, down 4-0, a guy who has not won a game all year is shutting you down, and they found a way. And that's what what you're hoping that they can start to do. And they found a way tonight. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was kind of fans were out there talking like, of course, we beat up on Spencer Strider and Sonny Gray and Joe Ryan, and they come in here. Jordy Lyles rolls into town with a 0-11 record and a 6.9 ERA, and he's shutting them down for 6 innings. And it looked like a classic case of Casey just kind of left him in there for a little bit too long, and the Tigers kept fighting, and you got a couple men on base. Cabrera's renaissance seems to continue. Jonathan Scope had a big hit. Jake Rogers came through with a huge kind of loop single to left.
Really nice attack.
And then they just fought, and then it was really, it was Kerry Bonds time. Torkelson got called out on. He was very upset about a call that actually ended up being a strike. The way that they call it, at least at AAA, if it touches that zone at all, it's a strike. It looked low on TV, but Kerry Carpenter picked him up right after that 3-run bomb to give the Tigers the lead. And then you got Tyler Alexander gave it in and out of trouble, which was kind of like, hey, why is Tyler Alexander pitching here? But they've been doing some bullpen games a lot lately, so they just need length from anybody. And Alex Lang, it was nice to see him get out there and pitch a clean inning. So, yeah, what could have been a very disappointing game ended up being kind of a very uplifting game.
And there were some good performances there. I really thought Tyler Alexander, and again, it's always dangerous to try to be a body language expert, but he looked confident. I mean, he really looked like he was in command out there, and the numbers prove it. I think he threw 30 pitches, 23 of them were strikes. He was just commanding the zone, changing speeds. He zipped a couple of 92-mile-an-hour heaters past people. He just had it going, looked really good. Even the hit by Sal Perez was just a dying quail. That was great. Again, Jake Rogers at bat. That's the kind of at bat that, with that all or nothing swing, you don't see enough of from him. He really was able to fight off some pitches. And then the hit that he put out there into the outfield, it wasn't the big uppercut. I mean, he tried to make some contact, and he was able to feed one over the third baseman there. And then what can you say about Kerry Carpenter? I mean, the 3-run homer is always a pretty handy little thing to have in your hip pocket.
Yeah, I was doing some research right before the show. I put it out on the Twitter account on the Motor City Metrics, but it's kind of my old school Motor City Metrics tweets that people don't particularly care for. John and Cameron are the ones who get the likes and stuff. But I was looking at Carpenter's now played 62 games for the Tigers. He's got 12 home runs. Mm-hmm. That's tied for the second most with a bunch of other guys ever who begin a career with the Tigers. Rudy York had 17 through 62 games. But it's Carpenter, it's Matt Joyce, it's Brennan Bosch, it's Gabe Kapler, and it's Jason Thompson. And Tony Clark and Willie Horton had 11 through 62 games. So
interesting.
Yeah, he's off to a pretty nice start there.
It's just it's going to be really interesting. And that was one of the first balls since he's come back from injury that he really turned on and pulled. I mean, he's been hitting everything to left center and doing very well. Don't get me wrong, but he really set that pitcher up and got a pitch he could drive, and he turned and belted it.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool one too, where he was kind of like, it was almost like the way I shoot in golf, where suddenly my front leg is just flying wide open like a rusty gate. And but he was like a little Punch Fisky, where he's like waving it in. But we got John coming back here now after he had internet issues. How are you, John? You working now?
I hope so. I hope everything
right.
now.
So yeah, well, if you're there now, let's get your take on this last couple of games from the Tigers.
Yeah, I mean, so the Tigers are 31-40 now. They pull out the win tonight at home against the Royals. Kerry Carpenter, I'm sure we're going to talk about him a lot on this pod. Really, really good development from him coming back from injury, hitting the ball really, really well in the middle of the order for the Tigers. And then the bullpen is my biggest takeaway, just, with, the amount of innings they've been forced to throw. I mean, I think we need to have a conversation about Tyler Holden, and if he was the best pick up by really, really solid.
Oop. You froze up on us a second again, but we got the general idea of what you were saying.
Yeah, just the bullpen to me has been the biggest takeaway, and the amount of innings they've been put on them, and they can continue to deliver for the Tigers and keep them in ball games.
Well, I mean, just the fact that they had to throw bullpen games and they walked away with some wins, credit to them, no doubt about it. And then tonight, the bullpen brought it home as well. So, Sunday's game really, to me, is obviously whenever your team pulls a big comeback, everybody loves that. But there's something about a ball game when your team is about to blow a big lead and you're on pins and needles, and you get that feeling in the pit of your stomach that this is sliding away. And then somehow they pull it out of the fire, like Jason Foley did. That's one of my favorite wins of the season. When Jason Foley struck out Buxton, that is the loudest, actually maybe the only time I really yelled here by myself in the house all year. That one really got me stoked, and he really looked good. I mean, Jason Foley was in command yesterday after taking over from Alex Lang, who, what can you say? I mean, it was nice that he was able to get back on the horse tonight and face the bottom half of the Royals order. That was a nice tonic for him, but that was one of the ugliest outings you'll ever see on Sunday. Foley picked him up in a big way.
Yeah, my kind of takeaway is just the AL Central as a whole. Like, who's winning this division now? Because, I mean, we just saw the first place team, and we took 3 out of 4 from them. So, like, what are your kind of thoughts on the
Right, Chris.
AL?
Well, I mean, it's kind of funny. Yeah, you think about it, like the White Sox are still kind of trudging along. I think the Tigers have repassed them in the standings, right? Tigers back in the third. They had, Lance Lynn with a 16 strikeout game last night and a loss.
Yeah.
That's always tough. And the Guardians are just kind of hanging around like they did last year. It feels like it's almost exactly like last year, where they hung around, and then the offense finally woke up in like July and they ran away with it. I still think the Twins probably have the most overall talent, but you know what? The Tigers have some help coming back soon. I don't know if it's enough help, but Skubal looks outstanding down in the minors so far. You just keep your fingers crossed he stays healthy. Manning has looked okay. Bobrisky has looked okay. We've seen Scott Harris. They continue to go and find bullpen arms for depth. They had Seth Elledge. I don't know. Did he even come up? I don't remember if he came up or not, but
I don't think so.
He's been released in favor of this Blair Calvo guy, sinker slider guy from Colorado. And they also had, it was Anthony Mishkowitz, or I don't know how to pronounce his name, but former MSU player.
Yes, he actually went to the same high school I went to.
Hey, all right. So how do you pronounce his name?
I don't know. Anthony Misovich. He went to Anchor Bay High School. That's all I know. But
Anthony Manischewitz.
We'll just call him the Anchor.
Oh, the Anchor. I thought you called him the Yanker. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, me too.
Like, hey, you don't know him that well, but yeah. So you see that, and that was another thing we could talk about. I mean, I've got some things to throw out there, like people have been kind of pushing for Jake Rogers to get more playing time than Eric Haas. And it's kind of hard to argue now. I mean, there's certain things we looked at it before that Jake Rogers doesn't hit four seamers and Eric Haas does, and Jake Rogers hits sinkers and Eric Haas doesn't. We thought maybe there's some platoon stuff there, but Eric Haas just isn't hitting much of anything right now, unfortunately. And it's Jake Rogers is the superior defensive catcher. So yeah, I don't know. We may see more playing time for Rogers now. It's tough to think there. That was one idea I had. Go ahead.
Dickerson and Bobby Scales were talking about him, about some changes he's trying to make to his swing, evidently. Now, hey, everybody's tinkering with their swing continually. Everybody does. So whatever he's working on, I mean, obviously he's struggling, so he should be working on something, right? He did hit a couple of balls pretty hard in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. Again, that's where you're getting into the Torkelson. His exit velo is good, right? But Haas hit a couple of balls. That's all you can do is go through the process and try to hit the ball hard. We know from the past couple of years, Haas is capable of a sustained run where he's hitting the ball very hard and he's very productive. I would hate to give up on that merely to play Jake Rogers. Again, Rogers can hit some home runs. Great at bat tonight. He is a better defender. We'll give him that. Should he play 2 out of 3? Sure. But I still think there's a spot for Eric Haas for now. Now, the other flip side is he's turned 30. He's a kind of a halfway journeyman player, right? Maybe maybe that's it for him. Maybe last year was the highlight. That's very possible because he's not a star level player.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's tough because like you said, there are times when he's capable of really powering an offense for a while, but it's getting late early, and Rogers been playing well, so you assume he's going to play more often. The other question I have, we kind of for a long time were assuming that maybe Alex Lang was going to be the Tigers All-Star representative this year, but now I'm wondering, and not just because of the other night, but now because the numbers overall look better, if Jason Foley might make more sense. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'd say 100% Jason Foley. I was going to throw this at you, Kerry Carpenter, if he continues to hit like this and can stay healthy. But I'd say Jason Foley right now is probably your number one candidate. Eduardo Rodriguez, if he comes back, before and maybe makes a few starts, I'd say him. But yeah, I'd say Foley number one right now. And I think Kerry Carpenter, if he can continue to stay healthy, I think he can make a bid for an all-star bid as well.
So you didn't vote for Matt Vierling?
He's not too far off. Matt Vierling has been really solid this year.
Well, so wait, where I want to know, because that kind of popped up and came and went before I realized what was happening, but it was apparently spurred on by Oakland fans.
Yeah, they were just screwing around on Twitter one night. They wanted a obscure person to vote for, and somebody randomly said Matt Vierling, and it just kind of took off.
Hey, man, do what you got to do, Oakland fans. We feel for you. You got a real life major league situation happening there with the ownership. And it's a bummer, but they briefly had a better record than the Royals, which is kind of wild. And we can see why after tonight, I suppose.
I saw that record about the Royals after 69 games. Not nice, but they were tied with 2 Tiger teams. The 1996, among the worst records after 69 games, the 1996 Tigers and the 2003 Tigers. And I mean, I expected Oakland at some point to give some sort of life, but I don't know. I'm really shocked with the Royals with Witt and some of the hitting talent they have. Melendez. I thought this team would be at least interesting to watch, even as they lose, because that's how I grew up with the Royals in the 90s. As that, they were always losing, but at least they were interesting. They were at least fascinating to watch. When I was younger, the Royals were the epitome of American League Baseball in the AL West. I mean, John, help me on this stuff. Schuheimer, is it the guy who ended up going to Atlanta, but he built the KC teams in the 80s.
Yeah.
Sherholtz?
Sherholtz.
Yeah. Thank you. John Sherholtz. They had a legacy team for a while, and now all of a sudden it's back to the Bruce Chen and Kevin Appier days of the Royals for me to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I feel for the Royals fans, except that they had a World Series in the last decade. Tigers didn't get that. The Royals had a very unusual not unusual, but it's sort of the way the NBA used to work for us. I've talked about this before. Like growing up in the '80s, you had to get past, the Celtics, and then you lost to the Lakers, and then you had to get past the Lakers to win it all. And the Royals, got good, got the World Series and lost, then got back to the next year and won. Like you don't see that happen really in baseball. It's just kind of topsy-turvy, but they did it, and good for them. But yeah, they're the world of hurt right now, and there's not a whole lot of help.
Well, I mean, this team has hurt him. Obviously, Pasquantino tore his labrum. He's out, and he was struggling beforehand because of the shoulder. Bobby Witt looked good tonight, obviously, but really, he's been about a 275 on base guy. So he's been a little bit disappointing, really. Although he hits a couple homers and steals some bags. Some of those other hitters just haven't come around like they hoped. Prado's not there yet. But the big thing was that pitching class. I mean, they anticipated 18 and 19 draft to really build that pitching staff, and they've almost all gone to hell.
Yeah, and it kind of makes you question just the future of the AL Central as a whole, because we were kind of looking like, the Royals had a bright future. Cleveland I still think has a pretty bright future, but it kind of leaves the Central kind of up for grabs for these next couple of years because we don't really know what's going to happen with the White Sox. The Royals look like they're still years away. We don't know how many years the Tigers are away, but maybe this is the Guardians division to lose for the next couple of years. Obviously, Minnesota could, say something about that, but I mean, they're going to have some guys coming up on free agency. I know Sonny Gray's a free agent after this year, so I don't know. The Central is going to be up for grabs, and I think maybe Cleveland is at the head of that, but I think the Tigers, if some things go their way, if they get healthy, I don't think they're necessarily too far away from being one of the top teams in the Central in a couple of years.
There was an article. Go ahead, Raj.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Well, there was an article out today that a lot of White Sox veterans are planning on being dealt. I mean, that was put out there by the players. So they're anticipating the white flag to go up in Chicago in the next few weeks. It really seems like they are not playing well as a team. There's not a lot of cohesion there in the clubhouse. There's even talk of Pedro Grifol being one and done in Chicago as the manager. But that begs the question, man, how many lives, how much of a Rasputin is Rick Hahn? I mean, could he hire another manager and get another hire?
I would think it would be a complete, Ken Williams and Rick Hahn gone, but you don't know with ownership there. But yeah, I mean, it's tough down there. I mean, Jake Berger is I don't know if people appreciate how cool of a story he is after he tears his Achilles 2 years in a row, I think. Yeah. He barely played in the minors, and he's got 15 home runs this year, something like that. But he's still kind of a positionless slugger. They took a bunch of guys like that, and it's just not a good team fit.
Well, he'd been playing so well. I think yesterday or the day before, Grifol batted him 8th, and there was a lot of consternation in the press about, well, why is he batting 8th? I mean, he's been pounding it.
Second cleanup.
Yeah, second, exactly. The manager really was in the press sounding extremely defensive and a little pissy. So that's never a good sign.
That's for Blood right there, I believe.
That's for Blood right there. Thank you, Blood right, for the $7. Is Marcus Stroman going to be a free agent? I believe he will be. And Dog Pound has Wynn, Tarek Skubal, and Matt Manning going back into the rotation. Probably one more tune-up start for both before we'll see them in the next series. I wanted to play a little bit today because there's somebody in one of our DMs who's taking a lot of credit for saying that Scott Harris talked to the media, and the answer is he was due to talk to the media, but don't give yourself so much Twitter out there because
yeah.
What were you gonna say, Chris?
Well, I said we can go over what Scott Harris said today because people have been clamoring for him to talk, and I don't know what he was going to say that was going to satisfy people, really. But the reporters did their job. They asked him most of the questions that you want to know, right? We already talked about. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but we have I was going to say, as Bernie highlights, when Burley Smilovitz used to say, or still says, we have the highlights.
All right.
I think on the pitching side, we've done a really good job of putting pressure on hitters. I think we have the lowest walk rate of any bullpen in the big leagues right now. Our rotation is banged up, as we've talked about, but we have guys that are stepping up, and we're excited to see what it looks like when we get healthy. On the offensive side of the ball, our top line performance as a whole is not where we want it to be. I think part of that is due to us missing some key bats that should be hitting in the middle of our order, at the top of our order right now. Part of it is that, some players are just not performing to the level that they would want to be right now. However, if you look under the hood at some of the things we're doing offensively right now, I think there are some important notes. We're walking more than we did last year. We are making more contact than we did last year. We are hitting the ball hard a lot more frequently than we did last year. We are lifting the ball more frequently than we did last year. And we're seeing a lot more pitches than we did last year. Again, the top line is not where we want to be. Our offense is not where we want to be as a whole. But those are some positive trend lines that are predictive of future improvement. I think on the pitch.
Yeah, that was encouraging. Saying all the factoids are right, but there's just one. No, Stan. By the way, the show started at 9:15 this evening. So, Stan was asking on YouTube when time the show started. But the Scott Harris comment of the day. Spencer's really talented. And you talk about Spencer's Turnbull. Quote, Spencer's really talented. You guys heard me talk about him on the record quite a bit. We just need him to get healthy. We just need him to pitch so we can see it. Beyond that, I don't really have any other information to share. In other words, well,
yeah. It's just to. I mean, I think we've seen a lot of what Scott Harris is talking about. We talked for most of the year about the quality of the at-bats this year for most guys. It's gone up. Part of that is just, addition by subtraction. Some of the guys who were overly aggressive. Old friend Willie Castro he was out there hitting for the Twins. But our buddy John Verberg had a really nice, kind of encapsulated it well in the tweet tonight after Kerry Carpenter's home run. He said it's nice to have guys who can wait out a pitcher. I don't have the exact quote, but basically wait for the pitcher to make a mistake. And that's what Carpenter did. He waited until that pitcher left him a changeup and he blasted it. And that's the sort of thing we've seen where just these longer at bats where guys are getting better pitches to hit just through virtue of like a war of attrition. And so that is good to see. Obviously, the offense was pretty terrible to begin the month, but then suddenly it found its footing again in the last week. So I don't know. It's tough to, debate what he's saying, but it's also when you look at some of the guys who are playing every day, you go, well, I don't think we like that so much. And he did address like Nick Maton, but I don't know what he really had to say there. Basically, he's like his young guy who's not performing as well, but we think there's more there.
Yeah, I think what was interesting about him saying they've not been healthy, which obviously, he's not going to sit there and, dog all over the offense. But I mean, it does make you think, if Riley Green was healthy, they finally get Kerry Carpenter back, but then they lose Riley Green. They obviously haven't had Austin Meadows. It kind of makes you wonder what this team would look like at full strength. And, I'm sure they're not going to be a ton better offensively, but it's certainly going to be a little bit better. But then again, this is baseball. Every team's going to deal with injuries. Now, we can debate if the Tigers have been more affected by injuries than other teams. But yeah, it kind of just makes you wonder, like, this team at full strength, how much better would they really be offensively?
Well, what is it? Another comment that I took away today was the Colt Keefe comments, which was, quote, Colt has been really, really fun to watch all year. In many ways, he embodies the offensive approach we're trying to build around this organization. He's swinging at the right pitches. He's accessing his power at almost every night. If you don't catch yourself, it's easy to forget he's the youngest player on the team, one of the younger players in all of AA. And he missed some valuable reps over the course of his young career due to injury. Right now, all I see is the speculation about promotions for him. Oops. The best thing that Colt can do right now is focus on getting better every day. The standard he is setting at that level, being obsessed with trying to get better every day, is a standard we want to have at all levels. I think it's important. I think the development goals for him right now are continuing to see different types of pitches, work on refining his defense at both third and second base, and making up for some of those lost reps he had so far in his young career. If he continues to do that, he'll be just fine. End of quote. And I mean, it's that to me is saying, in other words, we like him a lot, but we're cautiously optimistic. Maybe not ruling anything out at all.
I think the big thing is that was a necessary comment for him to make as team president, general manager, whatever you want to. He's president, right?
Yeah.
He talked today about not hiring a GM yet.
Yeah.
So he's a de facto GM. But anyway, I mentioned last week, I think on Twitter, it was getting to the point where Colt Keith had hit so much and so long now that it needed to be addressed publicly, that they at least acknowledge what's happening, how good he's looking, and that, their customers, i.e. the fans, are rumbling about, hey, let's go here. Let's get this guy going. And without any word from the organization, it leaves some of the fans to wonder, well, I mean, are they on the same page with us at all? So I think it made sense for him, even though maybe that was a lot of front office speak. I don't know if he gave us any real specifics, but he at least acknowledged what's going on. He acknowledged what people are thinking, and he gave a couple of reasons why, they're going to keep holding the reins in a little bit. But then he also left the door open that, you can go from AA to the majors. It can happen. So I just think he took some of the air out of the balloon that's been building up about Colt Keith. Everybody getting so excited, wondering when he's going to move. It was good to just have it addressed by the front office.
Yeah, and that's definitely, you're absolutely right, Uper. That was something that needed to be addressed, especially with one of the things too that's been, and Chris talked about this yesterday a little bit. Chris and I were talking about this. Actually, it was yesterday or the day before. I was up camping about Parker Meadows and some of the things about with him and his game and how he's been improving overall. But there's not much else to really write home about and kind of speak to. And right now, as it stands, it's something I was talking to. I saw Jason Beck today. So they had an event today down in Hamtramck. They raised the flag for the 100th anniversary, or the 100th birthday of Tricky Stearns, and they raised the flag at Hamtramck Park. So it was a really cool tribute. I got thanks to Gary Gillette for inviting me and Jason. I was talking to Jason Beck about AA staff, and right now with the first half of the season ending, what do you do with those pitchers at some point too? And that's going to have to be addressed at some point, because Toledo right now has been, Scott and Jason reminded me, and this was something he said that Toledo is important to the development. But right now it looks like it's just a cast of characters that are just any arm that sticks. Hey, we'll put you out there right now. And at least in Erie, there's some sort of, you see that group of guys, you see Madden, you see Flores, you see Herder, you see some sort of method to the madness. Right now in Toledo, they need pitching help really bad, and put those guys together for developmental purposes up to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about with Olsen gone. I mean, they've gone out and they added a guy from Indy Ball to start. Even beginning it was Brennan Hannafy and Godot. Yeah, these guys who are, not to denigrate them, but they're basically minor league lifers, I think. And we've seen the results in Toledo haven't been great. We mentioned last night they won their first series last week since mid-April. They went on a terrible run, but it was nice to see them come back, and it coincided with Parker Meadows and Justin Henry Malloy and Andre Lipsius producing, so that helps too. But yeah, it was nice. I agree. It was nice to hear Harris talk about Colt Keith. There's still going to be tons of speculation. Why isn't this guy in Toledo? Why, once he gets to Toledo, why isn't he in Detroit? We were working on maybe it's wait until Erie makes the playoffs. Erie's got a 1.5 game lead with 6 games to play. That's a pretty good spot to be. They're at Hartford, I think.
Yep.
So you just kind of hope that they can go 3-3, 4-2, and wrap it up. And then you would think it's open season. I would think some of the older arms, Gibson Long and Herder, I think at least both 24, 25 right now. Mm-hmm. Probably they would move up to Toledo. And the problem there is the pitching in West Michigan hasn't been great. We've seen some promising things from Troy Melton lately. He got his first win the other day. But there's not a ton of talent to kind of backfill that Erie rotation. Not a huge concern for the Tigers fans or whatever, but you do have to find bodies at some point. But maybe there's some help in that regard too, coming up from the Florida Complex League, as we got the first appearance of Jackson Jobe, which I think some fans like to hear, just to know that he's still alive and he's out there pitching. And he's 2 perfect innings, 4 strikeouts. It's, rookie level baseball, but that's what you should do to rookie level baseball if you're a number 3 overall pick. So that was good to see.
Yeah, I was kind of gonna ask, like, what do you think he could finish the season? What's kind of like his trajectory for the season? Do you think he could finish in Double-A, or is that a little ambitious?
Yeah, Raj, what do you think?
I think it's a little ambitious. I think he's gonna stay. They're gonna to stay on the safe side of things. I think they're gonna put him in West Michigan for a while. Just because at this point, I think it really depends on the draft. Really, what kind of arms are going to develop, or what kind of arms they're going to get. But I think right now they're in no rush to get him back, and they'd rather be safe than sorry. If they're going to be, if you think about the way they've taken the approach with Flores and the 4 innings, the 5 innings, 6 innings build, I think they're going to be playing cautious with this.
I mean, if he's even fully healthy, does he hit 60 innings for the year?
Let's see. Well, we got about half a season left, so that would be like a 120 for a full season. Probably not.
Yeah.
One thing I could see. I mean, I think it's going to be up to how he looks, honestly, because it's not terribly dissimilar to the case with Wilmer Flores beginning last year. Flores had all of 40 innings or whatever in pro ball, maybe less, when they'd sent him to West Michigan, and he was just electric for like 20 innings. Or like, this dude, there's absolutely nothing he has to prove here at this level. So they bumped him up to Double-A. I could see that happening with Job if he comes out and he's absolutely dominant. Seems unlikely, but we did hear, Hinch was complimentary about him over the offseason, said that he was, came into spring looking like the guy that they wanted him to look like. So, yeah, I would say it's unlikely, but it's possible that he could just, dominate his way to Double-A, which would be certainly, I think, would make Tigers fans feel a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, there's Job. If Job can go and do what he did last year at West Michigan, right, give them a little bit of a boost to the staff. I mean, right now the Whitecaps have been really, in terms of like as far as like just consistency from the starters. It's not Toledo bad though. At least it's not Toledo bad. I mean, they got Will Kill. Just it depends on the next wave who's going to be called up to then Erie from there, because I think if they're the next wave, I think Montero is going to stay in Erie, and then you might see. This is all speculation, of course. If they're going to call up anybody Toledo, maybe Sawyer Long. I think Sawyer Long is going to go first, then maybe Flores or her, and you can see a rotation. I think I have a vibe. We might have a rotation of Olafin, Sawyer Gibson Long, Herder, and Flores in Toledo by July, or by middle, maybe towards the end of July, maybe.
Just a bunch of galoots in that line, like just big dudes.
Yeah, so it's gonna be a beef. The Toledo beef hens,
the mud turkeys.
You talk about big pitchers, and as we watched Paul Skeens this week, that guy just looked so big on the mound. And before he even pitched, I thought about Jackson Jobe and how he's always struck me, maybe because he's got such a youthful face too. He looks so tiny to me. He's just it looks like Paul Skeens ate Jackson Jobe.
Well, Jobe makes like Reese Olson makes Jackson Jobe look like a giant. Reese Olson is literally like 6 foot, 175 pounds, with like a 13-year-old face. He looks like he's Michael Cera in the first season of Arrested Development. But Jobe actually he's gotten significantly larger, and he has really broad shoulders and thick thighs. So but he's not 6'6". He's 6'2", 6'3".
Yeah.
But he looks the part when you see him pitch. Actually, I was impressed with his physicality when we saw him last year. But
that's good to hear. I've never seen him in person yet, but he just Skeens has looked like just such a monster.
Yeah.
But I suppose when you're striking everybody out and powering through everybody, that just makes you look even bigger.
Well, that was the kind of thing I was mentioning. We had Brian Sikowski on the minor league podcast last night, and we were talking about the draft a little bit. And I was saying, as a fan, like I was kind of wanting Skeens. I was like, all right, let's see that change up. I just want to see it for like my own guilty purposes. Like, just show it to me. I want to see it. I want to see what it looks like. But he's like, no, you know what? I'll throw 101 on the corner and get the out and continue on in the College World Series. I'm like, all right, I guess that makes sense. But I want to see it. What's wrong? What do we got?
All right. Well, we got some breaking news here. So I'll just talk about Sawyer Gibson Long. He's placed on the Erie 7-day IL list.
No.
Jake Higginbottom placed on the Erie 7-day IL list.
Yeah.
Bim Algeri will be coming back, and reinstated Max Green, friend of the show.
Max
from-
Green, welcome back.
Yeah, transfer, but they reinstated him from Erie and transferred him back to Lakeland, Class A Lakeland.
Yep.
So there you go.
But yeah, if I could just kind of add on to like the calling guys up and giving young players a chance, I think we've kind of learned guys is going to give guys a chance to prove themselves. Is, he was, world struggles. People talking about sending him down. Now he's fired a month, made time.
I got nothing. You've gone full RoboCop on us.
Yeah, you're going. Your voice is going really, really robo-ish.
But I think what you're saying is that Scott Harris wants guys to prove themselves more. Was that kind of what he was getting at?
Yeah.
He's giving people more of a chance.
It reminds me of like the speaking in like the old Apple Macintosh games in 1987.
Or the talking baseball.
Yeah, ball.
Right. Let's just strike.
Sorry, John. I mean, I do think you're making a good point there, and that's one thing I think that we've talked about it before. That Avila and Dombrowski especially, they moved guys very quickly when they felt like they could help or they could be trade chips. And I don't know if that's Harris's MO yet. We don't really have an MO for him yet, but it's
Right.
like he's more inclined to be a guy who lets players overcook, if you will, which is not unlike, like we've seen other organizations. The Rays do that. Dodgers do that at times when they're not, beset by injuries like they are this year.
Mhm.
They let guys, marinate for a while before they call them up. And then we basically you see two kinds of rookie players. You see the guys who get out to a hot start and then the league adjusts to them, the James Outmans of the world, Brennan Bosch or whatever, and then you hope those guys can readjust. Or you see the guys who come up and really struggle, Spencer Torkelson's of the world, and then slowly start to figure things out. And maybe they prefer the first type, the guy who can come up and hit, and then, but I don't know. You're never. I don't think we're ever going to get the exact 100% real reason why Colt Keith hasn't been promoted or isn't up in the big leagues for Scott Harris. He's not going to tell us. Now my working theory is that he loves him and wants him to be rookie of the year next year so they get an extra draft pick.
I still think that's a sound theory. That's a sound theory to me. You know what's also pretty fun? We're just talking about. What's up? Go ahead.
Oh, Stan made a good point there. So don't you think Harris wants to see what the older prospects can do before he brings up younger prospects? I think there's some of that too. Yeah. I also think that, and I think John was kind of making this point, is that he values that 40-man roster, the flexibility of having these guys. And it was somebody asked a question yesterday, like, isn't Parker Meadows better than Jake Marisnick? And maybe not at this point. But the good thing about Jake Marisnick is you can just get rid of him.
Yeah.
That's like, if he's terrible, you get rid of him. If Parker Meadows is terrible, you're kind of with it. You have to deal with it. You have to try to help them through it. And that maybe they're not ready to do that right now. Maybe they will be later in the year. But for right now, they seem to still want to try to compete a little bit, even though they didn't really invest a ton in the team. But they're fighting. We've seen it all year long. Even when they were going through it on the offense, they were still battling in most games. It just the talent wasn't there.
I mean, they talked about that today. He talked a little bit about competing in the AL Central and how bad the division it is. And so I think that if they stand pat the way they do now, if they even make a semi move to compete in this division, I think Tiger fans would be somewhat content because they're taking advantage of a crappy division. And by the way, I just wanted to point this out. Paul Skeens is looking like Dirt Dastardly with that mustache going right now. With the color scheme right now.
Yeah.
The LSU color scheme.
Dick Dastardly.
Yeah, Dick Dastardly.
I like it.
Who was Dick Dastardly and who was Snidely Whiplash?
Anything Whiplash?
There was Snidely Whiplash too, right? Wasn't the
Yeah, so Dirt Dastardly was, it wasn't a Wacky Races.
Yeah.
And then Whiplash, I don't remember who that was, but when I saw this color combination.
I got a picture.
Oh, okay.
Here's Snidely Whiplash, if you could see it.
Oh, okay.
Ah.
Yeah, gotcha.
Very close.
Yeah.
Not a lot of
Sure.
creativity there. They're pretty similar.
Yeah,
I bet the same guy drew them.
yeah.
Probably.
It's just
Yeah,
one
probably
one with the more
too.
angular, and then the other one up and down. So anyway, that's my randomness right there for the evening.
Future Tiger, Paul Skeens.
Well,
Oh, current Tiger, Paul Skeens. Sorry.
yeah, he is a current
So-
Tiger, and here's a guy that as mentioned, Stan mentions a good point too, that we could see Andre Lipsius coming up to replace Nick Maton before Malloy, because Lipsius has greater position flexibility. He can play short, he can play second, he can play third. I mean, short. I say that in a pinch, not not a every day, but
it seems like they were really trying to get him to play first a lot this year. Get him to be an adequate first baseman. He could probably play short in a pinch. They have other guys though, that would be like a severe pinch where like Zach Short is hurt and Fiedler's still hurt and Baez is hurt. But yeah, he's on the 40 man. I think that's the key point right there too, right? Like they want to Stan's point, they want to work through these guys and see what they have before they go and add. Malloy's not on the 40 man. He doesn't have to be. Keith doesn't have to be till the end of the year, I think. So yeah, there's a little bit of flexibility there, and I think they want to use it. I'm trying to think, like, they haven't made a ton of room for 40-man guys this year, per se. I think they added Ibanez, right, and Shreve at the beginning of the year.
Sounds right.
Just pure like cutting. After that, it's been all sorts of IL moves. Moving this guy to 60-day, moving that guy off. And I was looking earlier when you guys mentioned it. So the Tigers have the 6th most days lost to injuries this year in baseball, 724. Yankees are first, Dodgers, Mets, Reds, and Rockies, and then it's the Tigers, just ahead of the Brewers. So, yeah, it's tough. And John was talking about earlier, and you lose Riley Green, Carpenter's out, he comes back, and Baddoo goes down. Meadows has been out all year. There's some key bats for this team. So, I don't know. I think they're just hoping to try to get everybody healthy and see what they can do.
If Riley Green had stayed healthy, if he'd stayed in the lineup, and let's say he stayed producing where he was, around a 400 on base that he was in the month of May there, where is this team right now? This last 3 weeks, are they 2 wins better? Because they really just needed a couple of more runs here and there. I mean, I know not every player is worth 5 wins. I get that. But the lineup just got so short without him for a while there. If they plug in that 400 on base, do they pull out at least 2 more of those games? Maybe 3?
It would shock me. I was expecting him to come down a little bit because he was just so hitting basically everything, and then everything was falling for him. But you could see the talent. You could see him making adjustments. He was putting in the great at bats all the time. So I remember I looked it up after he went down, and I think it's gotten worse since then. Their winning percentage with Riley Green as opposed to their winning percentage without. And it worked out to like 6 win difference over the course of a year. Mm-hmm. Just kind of the feel would be like, it feels like they would have won a couple more of these games with him in the lineup. Yes, Steve.
Well, it'll be very interesting to see what they can do the next 2 days. The Royals, as we mentioned earlier, are pretty mediocre at best. Probably that's being kind. They have to at least split these next 2. If they can get both of them, get a sweep here and move into the weekend, they got to be feeling pretty good about themselves with Minnesota coming back.
Yeah, but I agree with Deadly Ninja Bees, though. The bottom of the lineup is still, he says but he said but, B-U-T-T, but he said they're but. However, I would agree with him on that assessment. They really, it's just one of the things that you would, a lot of times with, especially we have a comment that that echoes a lot of fans what Joseph said in here, which is Nick Maton makes me miss everyday scope last year. You can't convince me any of these kids will be batting $160 with many of ABs, but maybe I'm wrong. The problem is, Joseph, is that here's the thing. I think if you do call up somebody like Malloy, or you do call up Lipsius, and they start off on they hit maybe a couple games and they go in a slump, then it's like that. I don't know. When do you go, okay, they're ready to go? If you look at the batted ball data, Lipsius is still just under league average in Toledo, I believe. And teams have figured out Malloy. He's been striking out more than he's walking. And so I think that now over the last month or so, his OPS is nice, but if he's striking out more because teams are figuring out, okay, we just get him low and away, or we'll just jam him inside, and he hasn't made the adjustments, the Tigers may want to see those adjustments before that, because then at least with Ibanez, for example, they know what they're getting. A guy who won't strike out, and eventually the ball will fall at some point.
Yeah,
wow. LSU
he's
lost
like
to Wake Forest. Ooh.
Well, Wake Forest is the number 1 overall seed. LSU doesn't have the depth of pitching this year. They have Skeens and they have Ty Floyd's pretty good, and they brought in Thatcher Hurd, who I really like. I've liked since the draft last year, a couple years ago. But Wake Forest has that killer offense, and their pitching is deeper, so it doesn't shock me a ton. But yeah, I mean LSU's, they got the 1 and 2 pick in the draft probably, but you need more than that on a team. And Tommy White, and they got a good team. Fred Morgan and all those guys are good, but Wake is pretty damn good too. So, I think, to be brutally honest, I think if Justin Henry Malloy came up, he would produce numbers that would look a hell of a lot like Nick Maton's. Just watching him play right now, he's off balance a lot of the time. He's swinging and missing a ton. He's walking plenty because he still has a good eye, but he's not hitting, and it's kind of a similar offensive profile. The defensive profile is not as Maton is not grading out well on defense this year, but Malloy would be the worst third baseman in baseball or in the big leagues. He's just not good at third. I thought he was okay to begin the year, but it's regressed since then. He makes bad decisions on throws. He just not going to work there, I don't think. He's still a solid prospect, but I don't think that Justin Henry Malloy is like a cornerstone of the future playoff team. People felt like that after the first month or whatever because of the way he was hitting, but the reality is he's probably an average player at best.
Do you see him as left fielder?
I think he's going to have to play left field. Yeah, I've seen him out in the outfield a little bit. He's okay out there. It's just it's not a plus by any means, but it's less detrimental to your team if he's out there for the most part. Like, I get it, if a left fielder makes a mistake, it's probably a lot more trouble than if a third baseman makes a mistake. But he's going to get fewer opportunities to blow it. And I think he's a decent enough athlete. He's not like cement leg or whatever, but he's just the hands and the arm aren't great.
He's not going to be Kristen Stewart out there, right? I mean, it's kind of.
I don't think it'd be quite that bad, but yeah, I mean that's a pretty low bar to set.
Yeah, it's true.
By the way, just about over an hour ago, a guy we just saw in Erie a few months ago, Henry Davis just got his first major league hit. So he got called up double, and he was called up to AAA Annapolis just a few weeks ago, and he's been in right field. Yeah, a few days.
Yeah.
He's only been there a few days, and so he's already in the show. So the first overall pick from the 2021 draft, a guy who, I mean, country strong. He didn't wear batting gloves, did he, Chris? When we saw him play,
he was like the Incredible Hulking out of his jersey. Like it's the muscle is just absurd. He's just a brick, and he caught basically 2 full games. Night game and then the day game the next day. It was kind of like, wow, that's putting a lot on him. But they brought him up as a right fielder because they want the bat. He can catch. He's not going to be a primary catcher, I think, on a championship level team. It's just so like muscular and stiff. But that it kind of reminds me like of an Evan Gattis almost, like just a big old lumberjack who is going to he'll play back there, but he might be the third catcher. But yeah, he can hit. He's probably going to hit for decent average, but more power and walks. But that's it's good timing to get that number 1 overall pick from a couple of years ago up to the majors, right around draft time for us, making us think about what could be happening 2 years from now or even earlier. Maybe Wyatt Langford just slices his way through the minors, is up playing left field or even center field for the Tigers in 2 years time or less.
So we did get a couple of questions in here real quick. Is Malloy better defensively than Keith? I think Keith's.
No.
It's. I don't know, Chris. That's like splitting hairs a little bit to me.
No, I don't know what's going on with Keith with his arm right now. He's been wearing like a sleeve. He hasn't been playing third base, so who knows what's going on there. But when they were both healthy, Keith looked to me like if he come to the majors, he'd be like a bottom 5 third baseman defensively, and Malloy would be the worst in the big leagues. If that makes, I mean, neither one of them are tearing up things. It's not, Keith can make all the plays. It's just not quite consistent, and he's just a bigger dude. Malloy, it's a lot of, like I said, it's he's not great at throwing off platform. He has to charge the ball and throw sidearm. It's not going well. So I think you can survive with Keith at third base because he's going to hit enough to make it work, and you can try to figure it out. Malloy, I think, is you're pressing your luck there. It's kind of Castellanos-ish at third. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's saying something. So, is he a second baseman or is he going to be in right field?
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, I think you can survive with Keith at third if all things being equal. If you have a really good shortstop defender, and fortunately the Tigers do,
Yeah.
pretty damn good defender at shortstop. So that helped. We were projecting right field going back to last year, I think, because he's a surprisingly good athlete, of like top end speed, not necessarily like agility, but he's a guy who I think get him some reps in the outfield, he might be able to go run it down in the gaps better than you might think. And the arm is fine. Again, pending whatever's going on with his shoulder. So yeah, I mean, I think he can play second, probably a little bit too. There's some versatility there in that regard, but I think ultimately, you want him probably manning right field down the road and just get that bat in the lineup. His best position would probably be at bat.
Yes.
So somebody was asking about they have to lead the league in injury rehab innings. Well, right now I can tell you this much: out of the Dodgers have 16 players that have been on the IL, and the Tigers are right up there with 13. So
The pitchers
13
or overall players?
overall players.
Yeah.
Pitchers of the 13 of the 13 that are on that list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Hold on, let me see if I can cut 2, 4, count 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 of them are pitchers.
Yeah, I mean, they just name the starting rotation at the beginning of the year and tell us who's still there. It's Erod's gone.
Yeah.
Boyd and Lorenzen are still around. Fido is out. Manning's out. Skubal is out. We knew that. Mize is out. We knew that was happening. Craig Winginter is rehabbing right now. Volpersky is rehabbing. Who am I missing? Anybody? It's been a lot of
Freddie Pacheco.
injuries.
Pacheco. I mean,
Pacheco. But he didn't he have TJ?
yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's they've missed a lot of arms and they've surprisingly been able to keep it afloat. Lorenzen has helped a lot. Reese Olson, we didn't even talk about Reese Olson tonight. Kind of what we expected, I think, from him. You'll see the flashes of really nasty stuff, and then he can't afford to make mistakes for whatever reason, and the hitters just jump all over his mistakes. So,
But
you got to see him get better than that. He gave him 6 innings.
hey, you gave him a quality start. The
Yeah.
last run was unearned. So 6 innings, 3 earned runs. I traded a couple tweets with Lynn Henning actually earlier tonight. He was talking about John Lowe and the quality start. And the stat I've always carried with me, and it's held up over time, is you get a quality start, you win 70% of the time. So that's a nice little predictor. Everybody would take that. So anytime your rookie who is only modestly successful in the minors can come up and give you a quality start, he's giving you a chance to win. And he's looked better than when I saw him. I saw him live here in Des Moines. He looked terrible. He's looking good. I got to believe there's enough raw talent there to make him some kind of reliever once some of these starters get back. I mean, I can't imagine he'll stay in the rotation. But, man, he throws 97. He's got a couple decent off-speed pitches. You got to believe he could, get you 3-4 outs out of the bullpen.
Yeah, he's a guy who you see as a 2-3 inning reliever with that changeup and slider, with the combo with that fastball. By the way, the Tigers lead the American League in most injured players. So, in case you're wondering on that list, I put the link in our chat, YouTube chat. So, of covers it all. But Joseph has a question in here as well. Would you guys rather see them being the Tigers being buyers or sellers at this point, or try to play the buy and sell game at the same time with our pitching for some bats maybe? Well, I mean, I hate to say this, but like for a guy like Olson, for example, you could trade Olson for a bat if you wanted to. And then it really depends on how they feel about who they have down in Erie right now, or how they feel about Flores and those guys down there. If you wanted to go that route, if they come back healthy, maybe they can do that. If Erod is not gonna fetch, I mean, I still think he's gonna fetch you a king's ransom, if you will. if they decide to trade him. But I think right now, it really, I know this next couple of weeks are going to be interesting because say they're 2 games back in the AL Central. Like, it's just going to be, well, do we make a minor trade or do we make a big trade? And I think the Tigers personally are thinking big picture. They're thinking about this year to be competitive, but the way Scott Harris spoke today, I got the vibe that they're really thinking, okay, you know what? We've made some strides. That's cool. But we're not going to get greedy right now because they really, realistically, in terms of depth now, don't really have a lot to work with. You know, Walter, you know what's funny about that too? Walter mentioned here that Daniel Norris got called up and he's now in the Guardians bullpen. This is a guy who did not want to sign with the team in the offseason unless he was a starter. But you're okay.
Take what you can
Never one of the more disappointing prospect players of the last couple decades or so. When Daniel Norris was like 21 years old, he was throwing 97, 98 with nasty breaking balls, great changeup, getting outs in the big leagues, and it just went downhill every year from there. It's a bummer. He had a lot of injuries, but a lot of it's between the ears with him. And I wish him well with the Guardians bullpen, but I don't know. There's not many better organizations to be in. If you're a pitcher looking for some help, but yeah, not expecting a ton of success there. We'll see.
The last month he was here in Detroit in September he did phenomenal last year.
Yeah,
and I guess the Tigers didn't offer him back, but I guess he wasn't. Apparently, he wanted to start again. And yeah, I don't know. I don't get it, but so.
Going back to what you said about big picture, small picture, immediate needs versus long term, it all boils down to, again, do you want to make some kind of fun run at a weak division that gets you really bounced in the playoffs early, or are you trying to build a championship team? That's really what it boils down to. So I think personally, what I would do if you gave me the power, which would be dangerous, obviously, I think you get your starters back. You see what you got with Skubal. You see what you have with Manning. You can move some guys to the bullpen. That should just in itself should make your pitching staff stronger. I think you still deal Erod instantly the second you get something you like. No matter how this team does over the next couple weeks, I think you make that move because you're not getting them back unless they can talk to him and they want to sign him. I guess that's possible. And I've always said they should use Illich's money. So if they can do that, great. I don't know if he's someone I want to invest in long term, but if that happens, fine. But I think otherwise, you make that deal and you try to make things work with the rest of the crew you got in here.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens because of we've talked before about who might also be on the market, and it might just be an army of AL Central pitchers. You might see Shane Bieber. You might see Lance Lynn and Lucas Giolito. You might see Stroman. Somebody mentioned Stroman earlier. Stroman has an opt-out. He's due for $25 million next year. I don't know. He probably thinks he can get more or a longer deal, so the Cubs might trade him. So there may be more arms in the market than the Tigers initially expected, and it might be kind of tough to get a decent return. But I don't know. They gotta look at, because it's that or losing for nothing most likely, right? So
what does Jason Foley bring?
And that's interesting. I mean, it's a different kind of reliever, right? I think a very smart organization like the Rays would value him because they value the variation of relievers. And I think a number of organizations would value him, but I don't know.
If you got the cousin of Justin Henry Malloy, is that what you'd expect, or would you think that there'd be more?
I could see something along those lines. Yeah, like a top 10 hitting prospect in an organization.
A contender,
a contender who is basically is blocked at every position he could play at. I could see that. I mean, you could see them moving Will Best or Jose Cisnero, guys who not necessarily going to get a huge return, but they think that they can move on from those guys, get something to help build the future. But as you mentioned, like some of these arms are coming back. Brisky's going to come back, probably be in the bullpen.
Yep.
Bido, he pitched well as a starter. Maybe he comes back as a starter. Maybe they move him to the bullpen. And like you said with Olsen, maybe they move him to the bullpen. when they mentioned trading Reese Olson, I kind of felt like it kind of took me back to like Jair Jurgens, like just a guy who came up and looked pretty good for a little bit, and he was skinny and had good stuff, and they moved him.
Yeah.
And then, they got Edgar Renteria, so that wasn't great for them. But Jurgens had that great like year or two with Atlanta, and then broke down because of his size. So
Mm-hmm.
at least that's what you blame it on. So maybe they'd move Olsen, but that was a team that was really going for it. Not
I mean, I would like. I don't want to assume that they're just going to they're going to trade everybody or anything like that as far as Olsen goes and what have you. But if they're going to have to move some sort of, they're going to have to make a trade. They're going to have to trade somebody, and whether it's, you can't keep everybody at this point. So in order for the Tigers to get another offensive bat, I mean, if you have Matt Burling right now struggling with back issues, back spasms, and who knows in the timetable. Again, we've talked about this. I think we should put this on our motto on the show, Chris Uper. And Uper, you're now well aware of this. If you have a bad back, forget about it. I mean, I'm sorry. Like it's one of those things, but Larry Love says that you guys are the best, but Faedo is only a starter in Toledo. Look, Faedo can, what he's shown. Yeah, I think he had a start this year. He made 16 or 17 swings and misses.
Yeah.
In Detroit, I believe, or something like ridiculous like that. I think Faedo.
My main complaint with Faedo is just his inability to stay healthy. Right, like if it's not a knee or something, it's a fingernail.
Torn nail.
Yeah, that sucks.
I don't think he's a starter on a good team.
Yeah,
but on
agreed.
a team like this, he can get you 6 innings and give up 3-4 runs and be competitive. I mean, that's not great.
That's all that the Tigers have really been asking for guys this year. Outside of Erod, it was really like, hey, just try to get us to the 6th or 7th inning if you can. Like, we've seen these bullpen outings recently. I don't think they want to do that forever. Scott Harris did say that they might keep doing them occasionally just because he likes them. But yeah, if they're gunning for the AL Central, I don't think Fido is their number 3 starter, but he's coming back, and that's another arm for them to use.
It is interesting what Raj said, and I agree with you, Raj. This is a team that's 31-40, right? And we're saying they got too many guys. They got to do so. They got to trade somebody. Usually, a 31-40 guy team, you're praying you can find people, but they have this glut of arms that's coming if they all stay healthy and get back in the lineup. Where it's going to be an interesting few weeks to see how they maneuver this roster. It's gonna be fun.
Go ahead, Chris.
Well, I was just say one other thing that I haven't heard a lot of people discuss. If McKinstry gets back and it's kind of a hot streak, maybe you trade him.
Yes.
That's a valuable piece to a contender. You basically traded a AA reliever for him. You get him, maybe you get a better piece than that. Maybe McKinstry is a better piece long term. I don't know, but he's played well for this team. But yeah, if you can get something good for him, then you didn't spend a lot to get him, so that's a win probably, right?
Just late last week, there was an article out that the Astros are looking for a left-handed utility guy. Left-handed bat utility batter. I mean, if he starts to hit again, I mean, there's your guy.
Yeah.
I mean, the Tigers really right now, if they had with the amount of arms they have, could trade for an outfielder that could play every day without being injured. I mean that. Look, I mean the outfield
thing isn't possible.
Yeah, I know it sounds crazy, but yeah, it's like the Tigers right now. And Stan is correct. I think to a certain extent, this is one of the better pitching staffs in this division. Maybe out like when healthy. But look at the Nick. That is savage. That's pretty funny. But look, the bottom line is they don't have a outfield right now that's healthy. And you're not going to tell me again. If you bring up Parker Meadows, great. But they still, I wouldn't mind if they traded a pitcher for a vet outfielder that can give them 20 to 30 home runs right now. Because I mean, to me, it's great to if that's possible. I mean, I look at the Cardinals situation. I'm always eyeing that Cardinals situation because they have a glutton of outfielders right now, and the NL Central is in. You talk about both divisions. Both Central divisions are bad, and the Cardinals could easily make a run and be back into the NL Central picture, no problem at all. Again, if that can happen, I don't know, but if you're the Tigers and you don't want to mortgage too much of the future, but you want to get better and play significant baseball, you're going to have to do something. You're going to, because again, how are you going to make room for Flores? How are you going to make room for these guys? So Tyler O'Neill for Foley, who says no? Sean in the chat.
I would think the Cardinals would say to know that, but
Yeah.
I mean, depending on how much they're fed up with that situation, but still, that's a starting outfielder for a lot of teams. As good as Foley has been, he's probably a setup man at best, right?
Yeah.
But starter, maybe starting pitcher. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. The market every year the market's a little bit different.
Right.
Sometimes relievers get really high prices. Sometimes starters get high prices. Sometimes nobody gets high price. So we'll see what happens this year. And it'll be fascinating to see what they do in the draft too. I've talked before about some of the kind of college infielders there available to them with their second and third pick. Kind of their upside reminds me a little bit of Zach McKinstry, like Mitch Jebb of MSU, kind of a speedy, slap hitting second baseman. Probably not a shortstop, maybe play shortstop in a pinch, center fielder type. Like, hey, you get a guy like that in a couple of years, use your McKinstry, and you've moved on from McKinstry, and it's all good. But we'll see. We'll see what they do.
I've been looking at that Geloff from Virginia.
Yeah.
He seems like a guy who might be there in the 30s. And he's been a pretty solid stick for them.
Yeah, Roger and I were talking about him too. I think we looked, you looked and saw he broke a record for their home runs, right?
Yeah. I like that guy a lot. And that would be an ideal third baseman situation too. I like his bat a lot. It was something I was able to watch. Harrison said the Tigers need a third baseman on the outfielder. Yes and no. I mean, you could argue that all day with that, Harrison, but the reason why I say an outfielder is because you can put an outfielder in multiple positions and plug and play. At third base, they've been able to do that somewhat. I mean, not effectively, but I think their third baseman right now is somebody like Cole Keefe or Malloy. It depends on what they want to do. Or for that matter, it could be somebody else. The next outfielder could be Brady Allen. As Chris pointed out a stat, this is what blew my mind. You're talking about, I was in Oscoda all weekend. I was vacation with my family, a couple days max. Then Chris showed me the stat, and it's been in my, honestly, I didn't think about this all day today. Brady Allen's numbers are similar to Jace Young. Go on Fangraphs and look it up.
They're almost identical, actually. Yeah, I mean, Allen's like a year older than Jace Young, but they're both hitting like 250, 260 with 11 to 13% walk rates. ISO over 200. They're both WRC pluses in the 130s. The thing I mentioned last night, and it's a bummer, is that, and I went and looked how many 22-year-olds in high A have a strikeout rate north of 25%. And I filtered it a little bit to see, and like a batting average under 275. Some guys just can hit and they'll strike out a bunch, but they can hit. Christian Encarnacion Strand, or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
He had a 6% walk rate, like a 28% strikeout rate, was hitting like 360 in high A because he can hit. Hitters hit. You'll hear scouts say that a lot. It's annoying, but it's very true. Hitters hit. In any event, so I filtered it, and there are 1,000 guys on that list. Jace Young is toward the top, but once you get past about 50, none of them are big leaguers, and only like 5 or 6 of the guys at the top are big leaguers. That doesn't mean to say that the die is cast and Jace Young can't get better, but there are few guys in that range at this age doing what he's doing that actually become anything, which is unfortunate. But again, it's only 200 at bats down there, so it's not. I'm not throwing or closing the door or whatever. It's just right now what he's doing isn't conducive to a lot of big league success.
Yeah.
Sorry to throw some cold water on that, but yeah, Brady Allen is playing pretty well too.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, it's just I understand where Harrison would get that, in terms of outfielders that could play, but the problem is they can't stay healthy. I mean, the reason why I would want an outfielder is because of Matt Verling's back. If his back is continuing to be a problem, then I don't know. Like, it's just it's just an issue that won't go away, Harrison. That's my concern, because right now you don't really have a solution unless you want to trust Parker Meadows. That's the only thing. I guess, granted, yes, they do have. I completely agree with you. They have a number of outfielders out there, but they just can't seem to stay healthy, and that was a problem too. And yeah, Matt Verling was really coming into his own. It seemed like since he got off the IL the first time, and now, but look, the Tigers are much more watchable now because of Kerry Carpenter. So
yeah, I didn't see who posted it. It's up there a little higher, I think. Corey said, "I've come around in the home run celebration," which we all thought was kind of dumb, where they hit a home run and put on the Red Wings helmet and they score. And I think we've all come around in a little bit because they're not doing it while losing 10-2, right? They're actually hitting big home runs and winning games. It's been a rough stretch there, but they had a hot stretch and then a really cold stretch, and now they seem to be playing well again. And it's pretty fun when players do stuff that's fun when they're winning. It's not fun when they do stuff that's fun when they're losing. It feels like, what are you guys doing?
And amazingly, with this team, one reason, even when they're behind and they do it, it's a little bit fun, is they're not getting blown out. Even the games they're losing, they're in the game most of the time. They're within, they're a 3-run homer from a comeback most of the time. So that's been the fun part about this team, is we haven't had to sit through a lot of 10-1 games, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that helps for sure.
Yeah, I mean, so if it's one of those things where you look at something like the home run celebration before is them just slapping hands and everything, and now instead we get to see, to me, I think it's cool, and it reminds me of grade school, actually. There's an old thing in grade school that we used to shoot on mini nets all the time, or we have like a little mini sticks. Yeah. You remember the mini sticks in high school, in elementary school? Yeah. That's so cool.
It's one of my only lasting purchases from the Hockey Hall of Fame in Toronto was a little mini stick that we would play in my friend's basement. We'd roll up a ball of socks and hit it around.
Yep.
Tape off the wall for a little hockey.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's what my brother and I. So we would watch Hockey Night in Canada, watch the Wings or the Leaves on Saturday night, and we had one of those little hacky sacks and the mini sticks. And we had what was called the utility room, where the furnace is, and I would play goalie. We switched goalie, and we play against each other. And because we had carpeted floors, we'll just slap it. Like, that's what we do. We try to score in between that perfect door frame right there. And then in elementary school, a lot of kids played either house leagues or Little Caesars, because where I went to school at, they had quite a bit of hockey players. Same thing. We would at lunch, when it was too cold, when we couldn't go outside for recess, mini sticks. So fun. It's so fun. I don't care how old you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, hockey was big, man. When we were in our tweens and teens, hockey was huge around here. I think it probably still is for a lot of people, but it was that feeling of something building and coming for the Red Wings in the '90s. We play roller hockey all the time, floor hockey. We got lakes around here. We go out and skate. Like I said, we play when we didn't have pucks or anything. We just grab ice cubes and throw them at each other on the floor. Sure. So my parents got a little upset about the wood floors. But listen, kids got to be kids, right?
Yeah. And you're talking about mini. Yeah, you can't go wrong with the mini sticks. And but like I said, I've come around that celebration. It's something. I think my favorite one is still the Marlin. Is it which one? No, it's the one. Where's the shopping cart? Is it the Jays?
Red Sox, right?
Red Sox. The Jays have the jacket. That's
Rogelio, confirmed Red Sox fan. Loves Sunday night baseball.
Oh my God, Sunday night. Okay, you know what? Before we get out of here, can we, for the love of Christ, ESPN, could you show another game?
No,
really, Dodgers and Giants going on? But you show Boston, New York again? What the hell is wrong with you guys? Seriously, I'm sick of this crap. It's just such a rivalry. Yeah, because you ram it down our effing throats all the effing time. Knock it off.
Not to interrupt your rant, but by the way, I don't know if people have noticed, but the Giants have now passed the Dodgers in the National League West. Are we giving Scott Harris any credit for that, or no? We're not gonna. Is that
you know what?
Things that he did there?
Yes!
No.
We're saying they don't miss Scott Harris.
Oh yeah, it could be that maybe they got rid of Scott Harris and now they're better. You could say that. It depends on what you want to say. How do you want to do it? They're getting contributions from guys that Scott Harris drafted. Patrick Bailey and Schmidt, and I think Harrison will probably be coming up soon. But yeah.
Yeah, the knee's getting shredded.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Trevor Burns. These kids.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was like the AstroTurf carpet. It was like
what do you call it? Strawberries? Strawberries?
Yeah.
It was all brown and orange for some reason.
Oh yeah, no. I had the classic Dookie Brown carpet.
Yep.
So it was funny because when my parents my dad put it in. No, I never gave it a second thought until like the wood paneling. So at least it matched the wood paneling, but the Dookie Brown carpet.
What the hell was going on with people in the 70s and 80s? We're like, you know what? Yeah, everything. Let's make it pea soup green and Dookie Brown, and we'll throw some orange in there.
Yeah.
That's good colors. What were they thinking?
Yeah, it was bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. But
Anyway.
also, no, seriously, enough with the Yankees in Boston. I'm done. So, honestly.
Dane McBain asks about what do you guys think of Schleicher? I don't know exactly how to pronounce his name, but later on, if we don't go for Teal, that's the catcher from Maryland who has really good plate discipline numbers this year. And he has a little bit of pop, but I think he's an undersized guy, probably not going to hit for a ton of power with wood bats. It would be interesting. He does kind of fit that, like I said, that Harris profile of controlling the strike zone. Catching is going to be really interesting this year because there are basically two catchers with first round grades, and Teal and who's the Murphy or something like this. It's a prep kid, and then Ralphie Velasquez is kind of borderline first rounder, but people think he's just going to hit, kind of a Soderstrom type. But after that, there's like no catching in this entire class. So it'd be interesting to see if teams reach for a catcher if they want one, or if they just feel like whatever, we'll just wait it out till next year.
Sign a couple from the Caribbean. Yeah.
Or the Tigers have been doing that in non-drafted guys the last couple of years. They've been adding. They got Archer Brookman and Colin Burgess and Alonso Rubalcaba. Alonso Rubalcaba hit a home run today. Mike Rothenberg.
Yeah.
Mike Rothenberg hit 3 home runs today for the Florida Complex League Tigers.
Huh?
Yeah, not gonna
7 RBIs.
Yeah, he got sent down there.
Well, I think I think
He's a new Brett Deathridge.
Oh yeah. It turns out that the Complex League isn't terribly hard for guys for like 24.
And by the way, Luke was ranked as #1 catcher in college baseball by D1 Baseball, and so you're wondering about
Ahead of Teal.
Wow.
Hmm.
Yeah. So if you're wondering about in terms of what he did in the Cape Cod League wise, he hit last year 273 with no home runs, but you were talking about that 16 walks to 18 strikeouts. So he finished 21 for 77 and playing for the Yarmouth Red Sox. He also plays a little bit of second base too.
He's the new James Skelton, and that is a reference that maybe 2 people will get.
Oh, I thought James Skelton would be a dark horse to make it. I really did. On base machine, and didn't happen.
To answer Harris's question, has the World Baseball Classic kid played Duke or it's
He pitched today and got a win, 6 innings today.
Yeah,
he's had 3 starts this year, so
he's doing pretty well too.
He's down in the Dominican Summer League. I think he's on the DSL Tigers 2. And I think with him, like, he's probably advanced enough to come stateside for the Florida Complex League, but I don't think he's pitched a ton in any real competitive capacity. Like, I think he may have been like old school playing on factory teams and things like that.
Yeah, Nicaragua's develop in terms of like development leagues, and those things are kind of similar to maybe high A, if that. But they are, as far as like, nowhere near the levels of like Japan or anything like that, for example. But they have some good players. It's just the development of the pitching and hitting is little. They don't have the
infrastructure, really.
Yeah,
it's the infrastructure to have competitive leagues and teams all over the country.
But yeah, they're getting better though. And Nicaragua's done. Yeah, I mean, of course, one of my favorite players of all time is from Nicaragua, Dennis Martinez, El Presidente. Yeah, he's from Nicaragua. Yeah, El Presidente. Best windup ever. All right, so we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much for listening to Motor City Metrics podcast here at TigersMLReports.com. And we've been slacking on our draft coverage, but we're going to crank out some written articles this week for myself, Chris, maybe John. We'll see. John, the internet cut out.
Rest in peace to John. He tried. He wanted to join us, but he was having internet issues. And we'll see him on Thursday.
Yeah, we'll see him Thursday. We're back on Thursday. I did put the link to the episode with Brian Sakowski. So Chris got to talk to Brian Sakowski. And for the same reason why I didn't jump on the show yesterday, going down 75 on a bad signal, I would have been, and I'm all about audio quality. So thanks, guys. Everybody, thank you. Harrison, where is my, I got to give him the.
That ball is gone. Such 'em all time.
for Harrison. And
Exquisite.
thank you for that. Yeah,
Who
there's
won the U.S. Open?
I don't
Wyndham Clark.
Oh,
What kind of name is that? That's a hotel. That's not
It's a
fishing.
hotel, absolutely.
All right.
you know, by the way,
Thank you.
yeah, random thing real quick. I was looking through my nephews. They're showing us, my nephew and niece were showing their yearbooks. Some of the names are just, there's like 4 different versions of how I spell Mackenzie, Jordan.
Did I tell you guys? Did I tell you there's a second grader at my son's school named Julius Caesars? I would tell you. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh,
So.
man. All right.
I have to get the picture next time. Not to blow up his spot. But I was
Yeah.
Julius Caesar. What?
Julius Caesar.
But, hey, you want to name your kid after one of like, the 3 most famous people of all time? Sure, go for
Oh, I hope his brother or his dog is named Brutus.
it. It'd be amazing.
His parents are, yeah, they're braggadocious about that. They're history nerds. All right, guys. We'll see you Thursday. Have a good week, everybody.
All right.
Beat those Royals.